They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
They want.
I don't know.
I told Ben that money. Don't take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, Uhuru comrades, Uhuru supporters, Uhuru friends. My name is Mbwezi Odom, and I am the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense campaign. And I want to give you a big Uhuru and a big thank you to everyone who is joining us here today. Today, we meet again with a profound sense of urgency because, as it's been said, we have serious indications that indictments are coming very soon on members of the party. And we want to be able to keep the community, keep the African world and the whole entire world aware of what is happening right now so we can mobilize our base and continue to fight back against these state attacks. I want everybody who is on this call, I want to thank you again, and I want to ask you to please continue to drop in the chat where you are tuning in from. I see we have people already tuning in from all parts of the world, all parts of this country where we are located right now. From I see London, I see Newark, New Jersey, I see Occupy Tanzania. I want to thank those who are tuning in from Ohio, from Oakland, California, from Brooklyn, New York, and many more. St. Louis, Missouri, right on. And again, like I said, we have, again, these indications that indictments are coming soon because of these attacks on Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party, which we understand as an attack on Africa and the African liberation struggle. So again, I want to just take a moment to salute the profound leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has given the world the theory of African internationalism, which we must acknowledge, whether we want to or not, that this theory has truly changed the world. And it has uplifted and carried out the struggle and under the leadership for the African working class. And I want to just really salute the chairman for this profound theory that has brought us to this place in this world where we can look at it and we can fight back with the weapon of theory. I also want to thank you, everybody who is on this call right now, our supporters, those who are joining us here today for the first time, those of you who came on last week during our emergency mass meeting, those who have been here since the beginning, who have continued to show great amount of support. It was really overwhelming, right? And we can't overstate the immense appreciation of resources raised that we were able to raise last week under such pressing moments. And again, your outrage and your outpouring of support, we want to salute everybody who has put their fingerprint on this campaign. And again, we had a lot of questions that came in after after last week's webinar, and lots of input, lots of inquiries, and we want to appreciate everybody for your patience as we continue to still get back to some of you if you haven't heard from us yet. So, and I want to again I can't, also move forward without thanking our volunteers of this campaign for their significant contributions of their time, their skills, their creativity, helping to wage this fight back on all fronts. And I have to thank our supporters, our endorsers who have sent solidarity statements, who have written articles. I want to particularly thank Don Fitz of the St. Louis Green Party, who wrote a phenomenal article that was just posted in the Countercurrents just the other day, and Sister Marsha Coleman Adebayo from the media, who just had another interview with the chairman just on yesterday, actually. So I just want to really salute, everybody who has supported, because what you're saying to the world is that this is what happened to the APSP, this is what can happen to you, and this is what can happen to anyone who is fighting for freedom if we don't do something about it now. So again, the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign was created to defend the African People's Socialist Party against the vicious, violent military raid style attacks on July 29th. We're here to build support for the African, for African people to organize for ourselves, to have total liberation of Africa and our people. We are here in this campaign to organize on the ground amongst the masses. This is you, everybody who is on this call. We are the masses, and we have the right to be able to organize for the liberation of African people as we understand, the African working class is in dire contradictions at this stage in the world and since over 600 years. And we are here to also denounce the FBI, the US government, for its attacks on the African liberation struggle historically and currently. And we are here to demand the US to drop threats of any charges against any member of the APSP, the Uhuru movement, and those who were named in this bogus indictment and the warrants. We demand the return of all confiscated property. We demand that the FBI stop surveillance and infiltration of the Uhuru movement and release of all documents since the 1960s, and to stop the attack on the anti-colonial activity and programs of the African People's Socialist Party, such as the Black Power Blueprint and other economic institutions and projects. If you unite with what I just said right there, you need to go to handsoffuhuru.org/petition, sign the petition. Those are the points on our petition that are very clear, that clearly state what we are, what we are fighting for. And we have a goal. Our chat moderators will tell you in the chat, what is our goal for today, how many petition signatures that we want to get for today's call as well. Uhuru, lots of excitement going over here on my phone as well. So comrades, I want to, make it clear that what you saw in that video on July 29th, 5 a.m. on a Friday morning, the FBI executed a full-on violent military-style two-state raid on 7 offices and homes of the African People's Socialist Party and its members in St. Louis, Missouri, and in St. Petersburg, Florida. These raids involved scores of armed FBI agents and members of the police forces from both cities. The main target, as we understand and as we know for the FBI and the US government, was Chairman Omali Yeshitela, whose home was raided as he was forced outside along with his wife, Onazane Yeshitela, who is the deputy chair of the party and a profound leader in her own right. The chairman was forced out of his home at gunpoint and with at least 20 assault rifle toting thugs, right, who were pointing their red laser sightings at his chest during this 5 a.m. raid. And as drones were flying into the home, one almost hitting Deputy Chair in the face, and they were told to be handcuffed and to sit on the curb. And as you heard, they refused to do. The FBI thugs also threw flashbang grenades, drones around the house, consciously breaking windows, breaking down doors, creating a wave of destruction in their house, stealing their phones, laptops, computers, and other items around the house. And they did this despite the fact that there was no warrant for their arrest, and they were not being legally detained. So this was happening at the same time in the Black community of St. Petersburg, Florida, where Akile Anai, a leading member in the African People's Socialist Party, was lured out of her home under the false notion that her car was being broken into, only to be surrounded by FBI and and police agents who seized her belongings, carried out similar violent raids, also at the Uhuru house in St. Petersburg, Florida, breaking down doors, creating, again, covering security cameras to hide the extent of their destruction and their theft, and stealing decades of archives, financial records, hard drives, laptops, computers, as you saw in the video. And again, what we have to understand, and this we have to attribute to the theory of African internationalism, to Chairman Omali Yeshitela's leadership, because on July 29th, they couldn't just attack the Black community. They couldn't just attack Black people. They had to attack white people. They had to extend their attack into the white community and they had to face white people, colonizers themselves, but colonizers who are Black power in white face, as we say in the movement. This is in the form of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. This is where they attacked the Uhuru Solidarity Center in South St. Louis, in the white community, in an organizing space for our solidarity comrades. This was also raided by military style, armed thugs, assault rifles, again, you saw the footage on the video. I don't need to go anymore, but what you do need to know is that they spent 6 hours going through the building and forcing 2 of the comrades from their apartment upstairs, bringing them down, putting them in handcuffs and having them sit in the back of a police vehicle, and carrying out similar vicious raids in South St. Louis at the homes of Kitty Riley and APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess in St. Louis. And I want to be clear that the main target was Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has fought his whole life for nothing more than the freedom and liberation of African people, wherever we are, in the US, in Africa, in the Caribbean, wherever we are in this world, and have been forcibly dispersed around this world, enslaved into a parasitic relationship with the colonizer, as we understand is the colonial mode of production. So I want to now, make sure that we don't take, we're not taking any of these attacks lightly. This is COINTELPRO. This is the colonial state under crisis. And all we have to do is look at the history of COINTELPRO in the 1960s, which left our leaders imprisoned, slandered, assassinated, poisoned, forced underground, you name it, right? And they tried it again on July 29th. And we have to understand that whether it's COINTELPRO, whether it's any other form of the state, be it the police, the military, the courts, the Democratic Party, right? All of this is forms of the colonial state. And Africa has been fighting back against the colonial state since it first met Europe, fatally met Europe, right? Over 600 years ago, which President Joe Biden attributes to this quote unquote original sin, right? Which we can attribute to, and we can even look at President Joe Biden's, right, 1994 crime bill, right, which the Violent Crime and Law Enforcement Act, which put 100,000 cops on the streets in African communities alone. So we're not just going to forget, and we haven't forgotten, and we understand what has happened, what happened 600 years ago, which Karl Marx has attributed the colonialism as the original sin would be attributed, or equivalent in theology. So sorry, comrades. So why, it's important to understand why we were attacked, because again, we're not going to stand by idly. We must take action now. And I really want to make it clear that our goal is to continue to control this narrative that has been put out by the colonial state, comrades. That African peoples that we are tools of the Russians, that we are not independent thinkers, and that we require Russia to tell us that we are oppressed and that we should fight for reparations and that we should charge the US with genocide. For centuries, we have understood this. And so today, just like any other day, comrades, we're going to control the narrative. We're going to put the state on trial. And we say Omali Yeshitela will not step foot in prison, anyone of the Uhuru movement for that matter, and the party will win, the people will win, this campaign will win, and Africa will be free and her people will be victorious. So with your participation, I want to thank you, and we're going to make this happen together. We can push back against these state attacks, and which has hit us and so many other movements. So what I want to do as we shift gears is I want to again thank everybody, and I'm seeing a lot in the chat that I will definitely come back to, but I want to just appreciate the enthusiasm, because again, as we continue to put the state on trial and wage this counter-offensive, right, in recognition that Chairman Omali Yeshitela is a brilliant thinker, has a brilliant analysis, right, that has placed a role for the world and for African people in it. And as a independent thinker, as a philosopher, a theoretician, which demands practice and concrete solutions of the problems that African people face, we can see that Chairman Omali Yeshitela's influence not only has positive implications for African people, but for all colonized people of the world. And through this political development of the party, the chairman has traveled around the world, right, to forward the struggle of the African working class with other freedom-loving, people who are fighting for, and countries and nations who are fighting for national liberation, to see a liberated world. So with that, we're going to take a moment to watch today a profound presentation that the chairman did in 2019 at the Oxford Union, where he was recognized as the leader of the African nation in his own right. Uhuru. And before we start, I'm going to read a section of the interview, or of the invitation invite that was sent to Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So the invitation reads, "Dear Mr. Yeshitela, I hope this email finds you well, and I am writing to extend an invitation to speak at the Oxford Union in our forthcoming term. Founded in 1823, the Oxford Union is the largest society at the University of Oxford and one of the most famous student societies in the world. In the past, we have hosted visits ranging from US Presidents Reagan, Nixon, Carter, and to Morgan Freeman and Malcolm X. Moreover, we are famous for debating the most important and pressing issues of the day, from a liberty and security debate last year to the King and County debate of 1933. We would love for you to be a part of this tradition." Quote, to speak on the motion, the House believes the left must reclaim populism, which later was the Africa debate. And it says here that with a lifetime of fighting for freedom for African people, you are a globally inspiring champion for racial equality and socialism. Your vision has been crucial to shaping the theory of African internationalism and indeed the socialist movement worldwide. This timely debate would be hugely benefited by your irreplaceable perspective and input. And the invitation goes on. So we're going to go ahead and start this video so you can get a chance to see what the chairman presented to the world. This is also known as the most famous 10 minutes known around the world. Uhuru.
I now look to Omali Yeshitela to continue the case for the proposition.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I have only recently come here from the United States of America. And that being the case, I cannot stand before this august body without prefacing my statement in defense of closer unity of Africa, without stating first my unconditional solidarity with President Maduro.
The war in Ukraine forced my family to flee. My sister, mother, and grandmother left their entire lives behind on February 20.
And the government and people of Venezuela, who are currently under attack, savage attack, by the declining world hegemon of the United States. I think it's absolutely necessary to say that coming from that country, and especially looking at the fact that the United States travels the world preening, presenting itself as the guardian of democracy and the rights of the peoples around the world, where the reality is that Africans who are colonized in the United States represent at least half of the largest prison population in the world. There are more Africans in prison in the United States than there are people in Djibouti or in Equatorial Guinea. And so we find it very difficult also recognizing that by their own estimates, it would take 228 years for the income of Africans colonized in the United States to equal that of the colonial white population. So it is absolutely necessary for me to stand here today before you expressing total opposition to the United States government terroristic actions against the people of Venezuela with an attempt to starve the people into opposition to their government. Mr. President, brothers and sisters, comrades, it is also necessary for us to say that this question of a closer union with Africa, between Africans, or within Africa, is not a purely academic question, despite the fact that this debate is occurring within the pinnacle of bourgeois academia. that there is a natural, historical inclination for Africa and African people to be united, which is one of the reasons I am here today. The truth of the matter is that this discussion about the unity of Africa, union of Africans, started much earlier than any incursion, as it might be characterized, of China or the Trump administration into Africa. The reality is that Africa came under assault some 600 years ago when Portugal first came and captured African people and initiated the process that would begin capitalism and would establish and consolidate the identity of Europeans in the world. It is a reality that capitalism rests upon a foundation of African slavery. Africans were first capital. And in order for this to occur and to last, it was absolutely necessary to keep African people divided so that we could not resist this horrible incursion on Africa that continues up to now. I think it's important to be able to say that. I think that we have to say that we've seen example after example by African people to unite. We've seen what used to be warring tribes in this geographical terrain that we occupy at this moment, able to achieve a sense of sameness that people refer to as nations, founded on a common economy that came from slavery and colonialism. This is the basis of the unity that we see. If there is a problem with the European Union today, it is because the foundation.
A warm meal, some fresh fruit, a bedtime snack, a healthy, happy childhood.
The economic foundation of capital, of imperialism, is being stressed by the struggles of the oppressed peoples of the world to take back their resources from this parasite that bleeds Africa, that bleeds the world, that bleeds Afghanistan, that bleeds the people of Yemen who are dying by the thousands even as we have this discussion. This is the basis of a Brexit. It can't stand together anymore because the host is rejecting the parasite. And it's creating crisis throughout Europe and throughout the imperialist world. I think it's necessary, brothers and sisters, to say that there has been a natural trajectory by African people for closer union. We know that we're talking about having this discussion in part because in 1884-85, Europeans sat at a table in Berlin, Germany, not a single African there, and carved up Africa into the territories that we now sometimes call countries and illogically refer to as nations. Africans didn't do that. It was Europe that did that. It was Europe and imperialism that required Africa to be divided so that the resources of Africa, both human and material, could come and pave the streets in London and grow the buildings in Amsterdam and bring clean water to New York, while the streets in Sierra Leone are not paved, and the people in Sierra Leone do not have clean water, and there's no national electric grid there. It is necessary to keep Africa divided by European imperialism and by all the imperialism in order to continue to suck the resources from Africa so that cell phones could exist here, so that Steve Jobs and the others could achieve some great notoriety from the coltan that comes from Congo, where Leopold killed at least 12 to 15 million Africans in order to conquer and keep Africa in the condition it's in today. We talk about a united Africa and African Union because of what European imperialism has done to Africa to keep us divided. We know it's true. We saw 100 years or so ago, Marcus Garvey organized the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities Leagues that stretched across the globe. More than 11 million African people everywhere were connected to this. Africa for Africans, at home and abroad. That was the cry. Not Africans for Nigerians that didn't even exist until the British created it in 1915. And Flora Shaw, the mistress who would become the wife of Frederick Lugard, came up with the name nigger area. Not this false national consciousness that has been imposed on Africans around the world. So that when the Portuguese found shrimp on West Africa and then named it for the Portuguese word for shrimp, Cameroon, it is not true that they are shrimp despite the fact that the people call themselves Cameroonians today. It is a false national consciousness. The false national consciousness that created the American Negro, that created the Black Brit, and the Afro-Swede. We are one Africa, one nation, and we must have closer union. But in order for that to happen, it has to be a revolutionary union. The Organization of African Union, created on May 25th, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, was part of an effort to circumvent efforts by Kwame Nkrumah to build a single union of African states. And instead, we come up with an Organization of African Union that codified the colonial borders that were created by Europe in 1884 and 85. We have to be able to break out of this, but it's going to take revolution in order to do this. African revolution in order to do this. African revolution that will destroy imperialism and the world economy that's responsible for the growing immiseration of the masses of people around the world. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Wow. I just want to really appreciate the opportunity for us to see this video that the chairman spoke years ago, and it's still relevant today, more so than ever. I want to acknowledge everything that was put forth in this video, which we will sum up and talk about in our next segment. And again, I just want to appreciate everybody who was on this call right now. And I want to just salute and say hello to Mimi Rosenberg, who was also on this call. I see you in the chat. You said, stay strong, continue your liberatory work for the equal rights and justice. And we want to appreciate you so much on WBAI as well, Mimi. And I want to also acknowledge there are some questions, and we will have a brief segment question today as well, and also give you other ways to join the campaign. And I will address another question coming up as well about what are we doing with these petitions. So I want to go ahead and introduce and bring up our next guest on today's webinar. And I want to, this segment is looking at what it looks like when we are building these Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa committees. And I have the pleasure of having on with me Director Tafari Mugedi, who is in South Africa, or as we say, occupied Azania, and Comrade Morlai, who might be joining us a little shorter if he's not on just yet, in Sierra Leone. But I know that Comrade Tafari can also speak to the work that is happening on the continent in Africa as we not just build, as we build our hands-off approach. So welcome, Comrade. I see you there.
Yes, Uhuru. Thank you, Comrade. Uhuru Africa. Thank you, Comrade Chair Mwezi. I want to salute the great work that you're doing in terms of leading this entire campaign. Yeah, as you have said, I am Director Tafari Mugeri. I am based in occupied Azania, what is known as South Africa, and I am the director of organization for the party here on the continent, as well as the chair of the party here in South Africa. And I just want to salute all the comrades who are here, all the freedom fighters on this meeting. And I want to give a special shout out and salutation to our Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is the leader and founder of the Uhuru movement, as well as the leader of the entire African nation and revolution. So I have actually entitled my presentation, Nothing Short of Revolution. And I heard that the chairman actually on this presentation that he made in 2019 at the Oxford Union, he speaks a lot about, or he emphasizes revolution. He does that a lot. If you listen to that speech, again, as we should, so we say nothing short of revolution. So including this campaign that we're engaged in right now, and it's also being on this call, this is part and parcel of the whole trajectory of making the African revolution. That is the path we are on right now. That is the main objective, is to make the African revolution. That's why we are here. Every piece of thing that we do, every piece of activity, project, campaign, or even a program that we hold once in a while, that is part and parcel of the whole process of making the revolution. And the reason I understand this is because of I am informed by a political theory that is called African internationalism. That's what informs, Comrade Chair Mwezi, and that's what informs our whole strategy of even calling on this meeting to have all African people from different parts of the world. As you can see here, I am in South Africa, Comrade Mwezi is in the US, we have comrades in West Africa, East Africa, in the Caribbean, we have comrades in Europe and so forth. We do this because we are informed by a theory, political theory known as African internationalism. And this is a political theory that was developed by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Chairman Omali Yeshitela developed this political theory in order for us to complete the Black Revolution that was destroyed in the 1960s. He did that, didn't do it because, like it was just a nice idea or something like that. It is out of necessity. We are brought here because as African people all over the world, we are colonized. We are colonized, we are colonial subjects. We live under colonial domination. We are not free. We are not free human beings. As much as, they speak about, Brittany Griner, who was arrested in Russia, and they say now she is free. And the chairman spoke immediately after that she is not free. Is she really free? Is she an African woman? If she's an African woman, how can we say she's free? When African people live under colonial domination. So we're saying that African people cannot be free until we make the African revolution. And I just want to take a moment to read here from the glossary of the African People's Socialist Party, the definition for revolution. What is revolution? When we say nothing short of revolution, what is revolution? And it says here, a revolution is a process of seizing state power, overturning a social system and replacing it with another, replacing the form.
Oh, somehow you're muted, Director Tafari.
I see. I don't know.
No, you were saying replacing. You were saying replacing and that's where I think you cut off.
Yeah, replace. We said that in a socialist revolution, the bourgeoisie is replaced by the working class as the new ruling class. And I'm self-critical about that, comrade. Someone tried to call me. I'm sure he's trying to get into this meeting. Okay, so that is the revolution, comrades. Without the African revolution, there is no way African people can be free. There's no way African people can be free, because why? We are not just fighting against an incident that occurred on the 29th of July. We're not fighting just fighting against that. We are fighting against a social system that is a history, that binds all of us together within a whole, political economy. There is a global economy, that this global economy rests upon the colonial domination of African people. We're fighting against a social system. That's what the chairman has been saying. So, this incident, the reason this thing happened is because African people being colonized continue to resist, because no one is going to just sit and accept being oppressed. we as African people continue to resist. Actually, the chairman has said that, the African working class, which is the majority in terms of the African nation, the African working class, the chairman says that we are the most consistently revolutionary social force in the world, the most consistently revolutionary social force in the world. African people are the key, actually, so the enemy, the colonial state, the oppressor imperialism, the white man has to make sure that African people cannot resist. They have to do that, and they do that on a daily basis. The reason we're saying that we have to have a revolution is because in order for us to be able to be successful, there has to be a struggle that needs to be waged, because we're fighting against a social system. And as we said that, the ruling class will not allow us to just take, our liberation without them resisting us, resisting our resistance even. And that's why they do this. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela says that in the 1960s, it was a revolutionary period. And we know about this, of course, because in the late 1940s, China became free. Even India became, independent. And then you also had in the 1950s, you have in Kenya, the Mau Mau, African people arming themselves, even creating, weapons, to fight the enemy, creating terror, in the face of the white man. We had the Mau Mau in Kenya fighting against the British there. And in the late 1950s, 1959, we had Cuba. In the 1960s, it's everywhere. It's Vietnam, it's the Black Panther Party, it's the Black Consciousness Movement, as they refer to it here in South Africa. You had, the armed struggles all over the continent. Even here in South Africa, you had the PAC and even the neo-colonial ANC. So it was everywhere, all over the world. This was a revolutionary period. So there was an opportunity for African people and all colonized people to be free, to destroy the social system, but then that revolution was destroyed. It was destroyed by a counter-insurgent, your program or a science or a strategy and tactic of the enemy to prevent us from being liberated. So the chairman, Omali Yeshitela, was involved in that struggle. He was there. He was born in 1941, right? So in the 1960s, he was there. He participated in that revolution, and he saw all the contradictions, that were confronted by that revolution. And he understood why that revolution did not succeed. And that's why in 1972, he founded the APSP, the African People's Socialist Party. And the main objective of the African People's Socialist Party is to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s, to complete that revolution. But in order for us to do this, comrades, we have to, look at the world as it is. If you want to be successful in anything, you have to confront the situation as it is. You cannot make up, simplify it, make it easier than it is, create some ideas that are outside of the reality. Chairman Omali Yeshitela, confronting the reality as it is, he acknowledges first and foremost that the revolution has been destroyed. And he looks at some of the things that, contributed to this defeat. And he says that the Black Revolution was defeated before, some of the most pertinent revolutionary and theoretical questions were resolved. He says, and then that's why he began to develop the political theory of African internationalism. African internationalism helps us to understand counterinsurgency. African internationalism helps us to understand why you would have Black presidents all over the African continent, but African people are still impoverished. Like in South Africa, you have a Black president, he's a billionaire, and also you have white people are still, wealthier than they were during apartheid. African internationalism helps us to understand neo-colonialism, that then you're fighting against a social system that can produce a social force, a class within the African revolution that's going to be against the African nation. And we refer to that, as the African petty bourgeoisie. And, so this, creation of of the African People's Socialist Party, the party, is informed by this political theory of African internationalism. And it doesn't end there. Right now, I'm speaking in South Africa. We have Comrade Chairman Omali, who is in West Africa. We have Comrade Kennedy, who is in Kenya, in East Africa. We have comrades here. Jessica is on this meeting. She's in Zambia. We have Visto. He's in Namibia. We have comrades S.G. Luwezi and comrade Karega, who are in London. Comrades all over the world. And in acknowledging the fact that African people are a nation all over the world and we are colonized everywhere. Chairman Omali Yeshitela says that we have to consolidate the African nation. And in consolidating the African nation, we must consolidate the African revolution. He says that the African revolution has reached its limitation when it is perceived or fought within the colonially imposed borders. Like I am in South Africa. If I think that I'm going to wage a South African revolution, that's not going to happen. It's only the petty bourgeoisie that are going to succeed. We are only going to reproduce the social system. If we think we're going to make some Zimbabwe revolution or some Namibia revolution or US Black Negro revolution, we are dreaming. That's not going to happen. African people must fight as one unified force all over the world. So the Chairman Omali Yeshitela has been able to do that. Uhuru, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to end it briefly, comrades. I just want to say that you can see African internationalism manifesting, comrades. Like in practice, African internationalism is a theory of practice. The party is everywhere. We are building in St. Louis. We are building in St. Petersburg. We have Uhuru houses there. We have the Black Power blueprint, and we are going to be doing this all over the world. And that's why we are under attack today. So we have to fight and understand that nothing short of revolution is going to work for African people. We have to fight to make this African revolution. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Director Tafari, I do hope that you stay on and that you share that document that you developed for this, nothing short of revolution. So I just want to say that was just very powerful. And this is really, we can't attribute this to anything else but the theory of African internationalism, which gives us the perspective and the worldview for how to see the world as it truly is, how to sum it up, but not just how to sum it up, but to be able to have the actual concrete, material ways to repair and to restore and to make a revolution that will be successful for the African working class. And I just want to really appreciate what you laid out. We can't, rely on the African petty bourgeoisie. We can't rely on the white left. We rely on the African working class who has been historically attacked. And like you said, since the 1960s, what happened in the 1960s with the OAU and the crushing of the African revolution on the continent, the same happened everywhere else because we are globally dispersed people. We have to organize, and we're going to fight back in all those various fronts where the colonizer has placed us. So I want to really appreciate you, Director Tafari, for that really profound statement. And we have a news and analysis section on our website, and I want to encourage anyone, if you want to write about this and you want to put this information out there, let's get that up. We have to continue to control and put out this really brilliant analysis, which is the truth. So thank you, Director Tafari. I hope you stay with us. And I want to now just really appreciate some of the questions and the comments that are coming in. There was just a lot of support for what's been said so far. And I want to take this moment now to welcome and to introduce the leader of the African nation, the one who's because when they were born in 1941 didn't stop, and for over 60 years has been leading a struggle for the liberation of African people. That's Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And we're going to take a few moments to hear from the chairman, now live in the flesh in 2022. So thank you, Chairman Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Comrade Mwezi. I'd like to also express my appreciation to this Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa committee. It is, as we have characterized it in the past, a not simply a defense committee, but a counter-offensive committee. Because we recognize that what we are dealing with is an historical assault on our people for our freedom. And lest anyone in this meeting forget, the fact is that we have been fighting for our freedom since our introduction to the shores of what is now characterized as North America. And when you look at the United States of America, which is often characterized as some kind of nation of immigrants, the attack on July 29th and the ongoing and incessant attacks on our struggle here in this country and helps to understand that, first of all, this country that they call America is not a nation, but it's a prison of nations. And that African people and the indigenous people are the only ones who did not come to these shores looking for a better way of life. The fact is that Africans lost a better way of life as a consequence of having been kidnapped from Africa, separated from Comrade Tafari, separated from all our brothers and sisters on the continent and dispersed around the world. And this is the reality that we've inherited. And this is something that predetermined the fact that there would always have to be violence imposed upon us to force us to accept this life that we live as Black people. We remember that the assault on Africa, which is what resulted in our being here, has deprived Africa of incredible resources. Comrade Tafari, all the time he was talking, I was concerned whether or not the infrastructure there would support his ongoing ability to have this discussion before he would lose power, whether the power, the electricity was going to go out at any given moment because the resources are sucked from Africa, the richest continent on the planet Earth in terms of material resources. And so Africa suffers despite the fact that there's not a country in the world that has anything that functions as a modern economy that could do so without the resources being extracted forcibly, taken from Africa. So Africa suffers, and African people who suffer in various places around the world, and the suffering that we experience around the world, the violence that's imposed on us around the world, our suffering and violence that was exported with us when we were snatched up from Africa. We brought that with us. We brought the struggle against that oppression with us. It didn't just start on the shores of what has now been renamed America or North America. It started when the first European put his foot on the continent of Africa and forced an African to do something against her will. And it has continued to be there as African people have been dispersed around the world and starved in Africa, where even in Africa where we're starving, the European colonizer who came there is living well on the continent of Africa, starved in Jamaica, starved in various places around the world. So this doesn't happen easily. It's been absolutely necessary for violence to be imposed on African people. And the truth of the matter is that freedom is illegal. And the reason that I am facing trial now, I am facing charges, the reason that our movement has come under assault is because freedom is illegal. And when we talk about revolution, what we recognize is that we're simply talking about overturning our relationship with a particular horrendous kind of social system that is parasitic. And the way this revolution is moving forward is through denying the parasite access to its host. A parasite cannot live without the host. It lives off the host. And so despite the fact that African people as host and other oppressed and colonized people around the world produce all this value, our lands are stolen from, all of this value, we function as a host to a parasitic social system that we characterize as a colonial mode of production. And so that's what we're dealing with. And freedom is illegal. We have not broken even the colonizer's law. And I want to be clear on that, that the charges that they have made against us are purely, absolutely fabricated. They claim that what we have done is violate some foreign, how do they some foreign, they call it FARA, I think it is, Foreign Agent Registration Act, that we are acting as agents of Russia. And of course, one of the reasons they have to do this is because there's been a problem for all of Europe, that was blossomed as a consequence of colonialism, stealing our resources, the birth of capitalism and what have you, and what they like to refer to as the democratic revolution that occurred in Europe. And this revolution that brought democracy to Europe. And here's the contradiction they've always had to deal with. While they talk about rule of law and they talk about democracy in Europe, on the one hand, they've never been able to explain why these European Democrats, these people who preach to us and the peoples of the world how we should live democratic lives, who would actually have the audacity to summon some 49 so-called heads of state from Africa and then tell them that they're going to give them some money for good governance, where African people in this country as well face incessant political violence. And July 29th was an act of political violence. It was a statement that we do not have the right to even move toward our own freedom as a people. So here's the contradiction they've always had. They talk about democracy on the one hand, but on the other hand, they've never been able to explain the murder and mayhem that they committed in Algeria, Nigeria, India, throughout the Caribbean, destroyed whole peoples. There are peoples who don't even exist in the Caribbean anymore as a consequence of this democracy, this process of democracy. What they've done to us in Haiti, how quickly they killed the entire indigenous population in Haiti. And how do you explain this? How do you explain the fact that you don't give trials, that you capture people and you put ropes around their neck and you hang them till they're dead, till you drag them behind cars? You have this popular pastime that's called lynching. How do you say that you are this Democrat that can do these things? And of course, this is the problem they've always had. And so what finally emerged was that they put forth, especially in England, but England set terms for much of what became the overall colonial world by saying that democracy is what has to prevail, rule of law has to prevail, but when it comes to the colonized people, we have to be brought up to the standards of civilization before we can enjoy democracy, and it's the responsibility of the colonizers to bring us up to these standards of civilization. And it's in anything that's done to bring us up to the standards of civilization is all right. So they have this whole legal exceptionalism so that there can be democracy for the white man, democracy for the colonizer, but it comes at the expense of anything that looks like democracy for the colonized and democracy for Africans. So this is where Rudyard Kipling, this famous imperialist poet of England, puts forth this whole notion of the white man's burden, this civilizing mission that white people have been involved in to bring us up to their standards and using the worst kinds of violence, the white man's burden to go to Africa and commit these offenses against us, the white man's burden to kill the indigenous people in the Americas, the white man's burden. This is something that the fact that white people have this surplus of civilization and this surplus of Christianity and this surplus of democracy, et cetera, and they got to share it with everybody, despite the fact that it's not something that they're comfortable with doing. It's their burden. It's their burden. And this is what we've been stuck with. And so here we are in the United States. And it's claimed that because we are engaged in certain kinds of events over the last several years, that we are in the employ of Russia, a foreign, as they call it, government, and therefore we should be registered as agents of Russia. And when the reality is that the problem that they have with us is not that we work for Russia, but that we work for Black people independently of any other force in the world. And they've said that evidence of our working for Russia is the participation that we engaged in an electoral process in St. Petersburg, Florida in 2017 and again in 2019, where we ran 2 candidates for local office, and where for the first time in its history, the only time that I'm familiar with, Barack Hussein Obama, who was then the president, intervened in a local election in St. Petersburg, Florida, to come out for our opponents because we were demanding reparations, unity through reparations, because we were saying Black community control of the police, because we were saying in the gentrification to make South St. Petersburg Black again. This is the kind of thing that we were doing with the electoral process. This is supposed to be legal. The elections are supposed to be open and accessible to everybody. This is the means by which the government says that people can use to promote their own political and economic interests. And so this is one of the things that, and they said the Russians paid for that. And of course, this flies in the face of, it's so ridiculous. I mean, here, Black people, nobody in America has fought harder than Black people for the right just to vote. People died for the right to vote. I mean, I was threatened with death and surrounded by mobs of white people in Madison, Florida, while organizing Black people to vote. I was threatened with arrest for taking groups of African people in Alachua County, Florida, to vote. And so this notion that we are participating in an electoral process because Russia told us to do it, that Black people would need Russians to tell us to do this, flies in the face of everything that's real. And the fact is that America has always tried to prevent us from voting. And when they couldn't prevent us from voting, to prevent us from voting in a way that they didn't want for us to vote. So we use the electoral process. And we used it because after they had killed Malcolm X, or during the process, they were killing Malcolm X, killing Martin Luther King, destroying members of the Black Panther Party, murdering Fred Hampton, all these things, people who were presenting a program for liberation, for freedom. And we were using, and so now as they're killing these people in 1965, the Voting Rights Act passed that says we can now utilize the electoral process, but they've killed most of our leaders. They've destroyed viable organizations, and they made it impossible for us to have anything worth voting for. People want to understand how African people bled so much in this country to vote and still are reluctant to participate in the electoral processes, because after they wiped us out, white people out like me, white people out like Malcolm, white people out like King, then we're left with nothing to vote for. And so the only thing left for us is the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is not now, nor has it ever been, a revolutionary organization. So they said that we somehow working for Russians because we try to vote, when the fact is that Black people have tried to vote in this country against the will of the United States because it was illegal. And when they made it illegal, they made it meaningless, and then they put exceptions to it so they can jail us for carrying out just this act of simply voting, simply participating in the electoral process. They said that we are somehow violating this Foreign Agent Registration Act because our position on Ukraine, because we don't support the United States position on Ukraine, because we recognize the real history there. But the fact of the matter is that if you're going to do that, African people have always resisted and opposed unjust wars in this country, going all the way back to the Spanish-American War. And even though Africans committed fantastically heroic acts pursuing some of the aims of the United States, we as a whole, in the aggregate, we were opposed to this unjust war. We were opposed to the wars against the people in the Philippines. We were opposed to the wars that were being waged against the people in Cuba, while America was still in Cuba, the Philippines, Guam, and all these things from Spain. Africans, we were opposed to Vietnam. In fact, one of the reasons the Vietnamese war had to be ended and negotiated in, one of the reasons is because Africans in the United States, Africans in Vietnam, who have been recruited and who constituted some 50 to 64% of the frontline soldiers that they use us for cannon fodder to fight against other colonized people, that created this incredible movement among African people. So the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, of which I was a part, said, hell no, we won't go. Russians didn't tell us to do that. Our political integrity told us to do this. This is who we are as Africa. This is a part of the tradition of African people. And I said Vietnam, we supported the struggle of our people in Algeria. We supported the struggle of the Cuban people. We supported the struggle of the people in Nicaragua. I organized the first event in solidarity with the Nicaraguan Revolution before the 1979 revolution in Northern California. I was invited and attended the first meeting of solidarity in Nicaragua. So Moscow is not the only place I was in. I was in Nicaragua because I support the struggle of the people of Nicaragua, despite the fact that the United States government was working to keep the people in Nicaragua under oppression. This is our history. This is our tradition. Our position on Ukraine is not something that required the Russians to tell us what to do, how to think, how to move, etc. And I'm just mentioning those things. And if I was in Suriname with groups of people in conferences, Black people who were talking about collectively, how can we win reparations? This is a part of our trajectory, and they want to put me in prison because somehow, and they want to put the Uhuru movement in prison. They want to destroy our organization because they say we are working for the Russians. I'm 81 years old, almost 100. And somehow now the Russians have informed me of the oppression that I have grown up with. I have never lived a single day in my 81 years of life where Black people were not catching hell in this country, and where I didn't understand the need at some juncture to try to fight against that. So this is part of the bogus charges that they are making. So Ukraine is an issue. So the elections that we participate in, that's an issue that they are using against us. And then, of course, the Genocide Convention. They said because we participated in a campaign to get African people to sign petitions charging the United States with genocide, according to the United Nations Convention on the crime, the punishment and prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide. That's something the United Nations law, that's international law. And so that the United States took 40 years after it was passed by the United Nations, 40 years later, before the United States accepted it, and then on the terms that it would never be charged itself with genocide. So 1951, shortly after the passage, which occurred in 1948, you had Black people who were going to the United States charging to the United Nations, charging the United States with genocide. You go throughout all of our materials since our inception, just about. You will find references to genocide, a proposition to genocide. You will find in 1982 at the World Tribunal Against Reparations that we held in Brooklyn, New York on November 13, that we held it according to international law, this tribunal that put the United States on trial. And part of the violations of international law that we charged the United States with in 1982 was the genocide being committed against African people, and we got the data and stuff to show it. But they don't want to have to deal with that. In fact, they will liquidate our oppression, and so that they don't have to talk about the oppression, they say because what we said about the oppression was something that the Russians paid us to do, therefore they liquidate the entire question. The question is genocide being committed against African people? Can you answer that question? Can you deal with that honestly and concretely? We're going to make them have to do that. We're going to have the trial. And part of the fact that people who are in this meeting right now provide us with the evidence that we're talking about and witnesses who can have this discussion about genocide. So it's a fabricated thing, and because freedom is illegal. And this is critical for us to understand right now, because it's not just a local struggle that we're involved in. Because the United States is involved in this humongous struggle to maintain its hegemony in the whole world. And it is contending with China and Russia, one of the forces that they say we are being led by. And it is contending with China and Russia while characterizing itself. That is to say, the United States is this great democracy, and Russia, China, and Venezuela, and all these other places that the United States, Iran, these autocracies where there is no freedom, and there's all the freedom in America. And so it becomes necessary to quiet us down, to keep us from being able as Black people to talk about our oppression. And if we say something about our oppression, then they have to say that they're not killing us. They're not raiding my home at 5 o'clock in the morning. They're not threatening my wife with drones being sent into the house. What they're doing is fighting Russia. And they're fighting Russia, not in St. Petersburg, Russia, but in St. Petersburg, Florida. They're fighting Russia in the most oppressed sector of St. Louis, where we have the most fantastic economic development programs that negates the power and influence of the parasite, which is the real problem they have. Thank you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Izweletu.
Africa.
Africa. Izweletu. Uhuru, Chairman. Yeah, wow. Just want to really salute that overview, Chairman. And like you said, there are people on this call, and we want to, bring them on so we can continue to deepen this discussion. The Chairman has laid it out. There is not much more I can say to even amount to the amount of history that that the theory of African internationalism can sum up in a short period of time for us to understand what we were up against. And I think we can be left with what the Chairman has said, that freedom is illegal. And this is, this is colonial law, and, call us, unindicted, what you want. We are fighting for freedom unapologetically. We say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. So I want to just take a moment to open up the floor. We have some more guests that are joining us on today's call, and we will allow a time for limited questions during this section of the program. And again, if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. They will be addressed. So I want to welcome onto the screen with me what the FBI and the US government have named as the quote unquote unindicted co-conspirators.
Chairman Wazy.
Uhuru, Chairman.
I want you to go and do that. But we've talked about revolution and overturning our relationship to the system. And people have been taught by the oppressor what revolution is and what it means and this kind of thing. Here's what I want to make absolutely clear: that we are not guilty even of what the laws that they have created. We are not guilty. We did not do the things that they said we did. We have not taken a single penny from the Russian government. We are not for hire. And I want to be clear on that point. And we went to Russia, Moscow, at the invitation of a non-governmental organization, just like we went to Oxford, and we've gone to other places around the world at invitation by them, because of who we are, what we stand for, what we represent, and the impact that we have on the ideas and politics inside the world. So we got lawyers who are going to go to court and fight them legally, but on the same time, we, the people in this meeting now, the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, are going to fight this case also among the peoples of the world. That's what I think is really important for everybody to understand, so people can rest confident we are not trying to trick you. When we say we didn't do it, we didn't do it. There are instances where I felt like we should say somebody did it, but we didn't do it. In fact, that's a really important point that I want to make for everybody who's in this meeting, and especially that's something that our lawyers have to feel comfortable with as well, I think, Uhuru. Thank you, comrade sister.
Right on, Chairman. Thank you for that intervention. Uhuru, I hope that was clear. And I want to just really appreciate that, Chairman. And we're going to have you back on as well, Chairman, as you join us with our next guest, at any moment. So again, like I said, we are welcoming onto the screen with us Director Akile Anayi, Vice Chair of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, and also the Chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess. We also have Chair Jesse, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Committee. Director Akile, as we have said, there we go, leads the Agitprop department of the African People's Socialist Party, and was and is our comrades that was attacked in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we also want to welcome on our attorneys who are representing our members in this case. We have with us Mutaki Akbar, or Akbar Mutaki there. Okay, there we go, comrade. Thank you so much. Welcome, Attorney Mutaki. And I also want to, I know we might have our other attorney on, Leonard, although we can give me an update if he was able to come back on. I know there was a time conflict. So I just want to open it up, comrades, and we can even begin with a statement from Mutaki Akbar if you wanted to open up as well. Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru, I'm Mutaki Akbar, I'm an attorney. We've been meeting over the last several months, kind of preparing for what we believe is an impending indictment against the unindicted co-conspirators right now. It's not much that we can add to the conversation, just from a legal standpoint. We're just trying to prepare for if the indictments do come down, just to have everybody in a position where we can get to court, get them out, and then able to fight everything, with them not being incarcerated during the pending trial. But I'll be on standby to answer any questions or anything.
Uhuru, Mutaki, and I appreciate that. Like you said, the people got to be ready. And so, above all, we can't sit here and just wait for more information. We have to continue to organize and to build so we can win this in the streets and in the courtroom. So thank you so much. And thank you for staying on. And yeah, and I want to open it up to, well, first we have on here Director Akile, we have Penny and Jesse. So yeah, let's go ahead and open it up to Director Akile.
Uhuru, Chair Mwezi. Well, I just want to say how profound, this meeting has been. I want to salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, for that incredible just presentation. And just, I think that, some people might hear, actually, this has not been our case. After the FBI attacks on July 29th, you think people would run away. And people have come, to support this party in droves. And I just really appreciate the stance of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, which is, just the confidence of the whole African nation to go up against, this vicious social system and to not be apologetic for standing up for African people for over 50 years, for making this struggle. And, regardless of, as he stated, being free and fighting for freedom is a crime. And, regardless of that, regardless of knowing that, has gone up, against the system, fearlessly, relentlessly. This is, something that we know. And I just really want to appreciate that, because that just informs our overall stance and gives the people, and including the unindicted co-conspirators, the fellow unindicted co-conspirators, the confidence to take on this colonial state, and a responsibility to take this struggle on, to take it to them, to use this door that they've opened up and to, turn it right back on them, what it is that they've done. And that's exactly what, we're going to do, is why we're saying put the state on trial. So I just wanted to first salute the chairman, the African People's Socialist Party, its leadership, your leadership in this overall campaign, and to all of the supporters, everybody who has contributed to this campaign in one way or another is going to contribute to this campaign in one way or another to become a part of this fight back, and also to to the attorneys, representing us, and, all the forces involved in this fight back. Just want to appreciate and salute you. And, just to reiterate some of the things that the chairman has said, one, that this attack, this is why this is urgent for us to, be able to pull together and organize around it, because despite the fact that we are confident that they will not be successful, the fact is that this is, an opening to them, attempting to crush this movement, to destroy this movement, to destroy the African liberation struggle. This is what we are seeing, and we cannot be confused about that. Even though they are so weak, and everything that they've thrown at us in this indictment is weak, is flimsy, as we've been able to sum it up. The fact is that this is a very serious political assault that's been made on our party as a part of the counterinsurgency that we've seen in the 60s. This is what we're experiencing in 2022 and beyond. So it's very important for us, to be a part of this and to organize this struggle, this fight back. And I'm just reiterating the things that the chairman has said and has struggled for us to understand that this attack has made the statement that Black people are not allowed to fight back against what has been characterized as the original sin, that the original sin that has not been done away with, which we can see with our own eyes as we look at the conditions of our people all throughout the world. What has been called the original sin exists today. Africans are suffering from it still today. Chairman Omali stated that we were attacked because of our temerity to do like Garvey, to unite our people and to free our land and our resources. This comes at the expense of the colonial capitalist economy, which the colonial ruling class will never admit to. And they would mask their fight to keep Black people serving as the pedestal of this parasitic world economy and say it's fighting against Russia, but we know better. And our objective will be to put the colonial state on trial, to expose the real basis for this attack, to force them to speak on the question of genocide and to whether or not the US is guilty of the crime of genocide against African people. And I want to draw attention to handsoffuhuru.org and the profile piece that we've done on all of the listed unindicted co-conspirators. And we can see through the brief resumes of these comrades in particular, why they would be targeted in this political assault. And more than this, these profiles, this meeting, and the 50-year history of the party should serve as enough evidence as to why Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the primary target in all of this. So we're being punished because we refuse to surrender Africa and her people to the colonizers any longer. We refuse to allow the colonizers the ability to set their sights on Africa to solve the problems of its bleak future, as they did 600 years ago. And this is clear, and this is what we'll confront them with in and outside of the courtroom. So I just really want to appreciate being able to, contribute to this discussion. I'm excited about this period and the opportunity to stand side by side with Chairman Omali Yeshitela as an unindicted co-conspirator as we go up against the colonial state. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa. Thank you, Director Akile, for that really powerful statement. And I just want to, thank you for reminding everybody about where they can read about, this spread that we have on the burningspear.com, but also through the Hands Off website, where you can read about our unindicted 4 co-conspirators who, as we say, are not guilty, and we are going to defend the right of the African working class in its vanguard to fight for the liberation of African people. So I want to thank you so much for that statement and for your relentless leadership, Comrade Akile Anayi. Next, I want to welcome up Penny Hess, who is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee and was also attacked on July 29th in the white community of St. Louis, and is also serving as a leading member as the vice chair of this Hands Off campaign Fight Back. Uhuru, welcome.
Uhuru, Chairman Wazy, Uhuru, everybody on this call. Just really want to salute Director Tufari, who went before us, and Director Akile, as well as Chairman Omali Yeshitela and you, Chairman Wazy. Just very much of an honor to be here and to be under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I just want to say about being an unindicted co-conspirator as the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is the organization of white people that was formed by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party in 1976. And the role of the chair is appointed by the chairman himself. So it is a very, very great honor to be able to serve in that capacity of this very, very important front of the African People's Socialist Party. And I do want to say a few words about that, if I may. It is important that the African People's Solidarity Committee exists. It is not an organization for charity. We are not allies. We are not white people who show up, and we are not fighting racism. What is significant about the African People's Solidarity Committee is that it was formed by the African People's Socialist Party as part of the party's anti-colonial strategy. It was created in 1976, and the party's strategy was created in the 1970s to win many sectors of the world population, as the chairman described, to unity with the concept that African people have an absolute, undeniable right to liberate themselves, to unite African people everywhere, and to free their homeland and be self-governing and self-sufficient in every way. And that this strategy was very, very important that the chairman developed it, because part of what it was doing was to end the isolation of African people, especially in face of the kind of government attacks that we see here, but we saw in the 1960s, FBI attacks. We saw, as has been said, the assassinations, the framing up of political prisoners, the destruction of organization, just the demoralization, and ultimately, as the chairman has pointed out, even the imposition of deadly drugs into the African population of this country to demoralize the entire African working class and community, and just this development of massive imprisonment of African people, which the chairman mentioned in his brilliant presentation at the Oxford Union, which is so powerful. But as the chairman has said, this is the same strategy that created the African People's Solidarity Committee has also guided the party to build alliances with other peoples around the world who are also struggling for their freedom and liberation in particular, or other peoples who, are friendly to the struggle. But the Irish, the Palestinians, the indigenous, the Mexican people, and so many more are peoples, and the Nicaraguans, as the chairman has mentioned, are the peoples, some of the peoples that this party has given its deepest, most profound unity, as if they are one people, and in so many ways that they would recognize that those struggling against colonialism are another front of the struggle against the colonial mode of production, and that this strategy is grounded in the understanding, as the chairman, as people have pointed out, the so-called original sin of the enslavement of African people, the genocide of the indigenous people, the theft of all of Africa's resources, its ideas, its science, its understanding, and the colonization of the majority of the peoples on the planet Earth. And this is what the chairman means when he talks about the colonial mode of production that gives to all of us as white people all our access to goods and services, to wealth, prosperity, even democracy, even the way we see ourselves in the world. This arrogance that white people have is based on the fact that everything that we have comes at the expense of African people, indigenous people, and the people on the planet Earth, that we owe reparations, and that we sit on the pedestal of the oppression of African people, and that we are the colonizers. And I think that this is so irrefutable. This is science. This is the science that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has brought the world. He has turned the world right side up. So while the party created relationships with other forces around the world, their relationship with white people is different because we're not another colonized force. And so therefore, the chairman came to the understanding that it is necessary for white people to be organized under the leadership of the African Revolution, the African People's Socialist Party, and that we are created, the Solidarity Committee has been created as a strategic relationship that sends white people behind enemy lines, as the chairman said, to speak in the voice of Black power, but in white face, to build a movement for reparations to African people, and genuine solidarity, which is the true anti-imperialist stand in the world, in solidarity under the leadership of the African working class. So the fact that the Uhuru Solidarity Center and those of us in the solidarity movement have been attacked on the south side of St. Louis, that this was a front of the party that they had to attack too. They couldn't just come to the chairman's neighborhood, the most impoverished neighborhood and deputy chairs where they live in St. Louis in the pre-dawn hours. They had to come to Gravois Avenue in Benton Park West in South St. Louis as well. And they very much threatened Chairman's life that day. And we know that, he's told us that, we've seen that. But that it was important that they had to raid the Solidarity Center too. And that this plays an important role in fending off just an isolated attack of the African Revolution. And it is really important. It's important that we understand that as white people, and that others from the white community know that there is a place for us. We have an assignment that we have to carry out, and that, you know, that we have the opportunity under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to have the experience of being part of the world revolution, of being part of the struggle of the African working class to transform the world, which indeed it is. And I appreciate so much what the chairman has said, that these charges are bogus. They're geared to take resources and to try to take the Uhuru movement off course, but they will never do that. And no, we have not broken their law. The African People's Socialist Party, if there is good and evil on this planet, the African People's Socialist Party is the good. It is working for the upliftment of African people and all oppressed and colonized people around the world, the end of all oppression, even gender oppression, any way that a human can do something at the expense of another human being. That's what it stands for. This is the good. Those that are charging the party, that are attacking the party, they are the rapists, the warmongers, the murderers, the starving people, the gunning down, the destroyers, the plunderers, the kidnappers, and the enslavers. That's who they are. This is on the side of the peoples on the planet Earth. And I call on other white people to join this struggle, join the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign, join the future, fight for reparations. Let's carry out our front of the African Revolution to do everything in our power to stand between this vicious colonial state and colonized African people, do everything possible on our front to prevent this state from harming, lifting a finger against Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela, or any member or front of the African People's Socialist Party, and the programs and works and projects of the Black Power Blueprint. So unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Comrade Penny Hess, for that profound analysis and profound, understanding of what solidarity, a genuine relationship with the colonized can look like, and making that clear and calling on white people to also join this struggle. Really want to salute that. And I want to also bring up another one of our solidarity comrades, Chair Jesse Neville, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and another one who was attacked on July 29th. Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru, Chair Mwezi, thank you so much. And I just want to say as well what an honor it is to participate in this event, and salute you, salute Director Akile, Director Tafari, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela, and also appreciate Attorney Akbar for being with us in this meeting today, and everyone who has joined. And as you said, Chair Mwezi, my name is Jesse Neville, and I'm a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee. I also want to appreciate Chairwoman Penny Hess and just say that everything that Chairwoman Penny just said perfectly articulates the basis for why I am a member of this organization and have the honor to chair our mass organization, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And I met the Uhuru movement in 2010. And for the past 13 years, I have with great pride worked under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party to carry out exactly what Chairwoman Penny just talked about, our work to win other white people to stand in solidarity with the righteous struggle of African people for their freedom and independence. And I am incredibly grateful to have met Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the party, who I consider to be a beacon of hope for humanity, showing the way out of a world shrouded in misery and pain caused by 600 years of a colonial capitalist system that was built on the backs of African people who we enslaved and exploited, and on the bones of the indigenous people who we murdered and whose land we stole from them. Chairman Omali Yeshitela's importance for the whole world cannot be overstated. We saw that video from the chairman's presentation in Oxford, that he has brought in every possible way that same electrifying, unifying, liberating message of African freedom, of Uhuru, whether he's speaking on the streets of Canfield Drive in Ferguson after the murder of Mike Brown in 2014, or in the hallowed halls of bourgeois academia, as he referred to it, in Oxford Union. The same message, the same vision. He has never wavered. He has never compromised. He has never deviated for one day of his life from the mission of independence and freedom for African and oppressed peoples. And as Chairwoman Penny just explained, he has also created an organizational vehicle for us white people who have sat on the backs of African people to come off that pedestal, join in an honest, dignified relationship with the rest of humanity, make a self-criticism for the crimes that we have carried out against the peoples of the world, work for repair of the damage, reparations, and solidarity with African and oppressed peoples around the world. And that is the door I am very grateful to have been given the opportunity to walk through when I joined this movement 13 years ago. And my call to white people who are tuning in, and to everyone who is tuning in, is to really see how important this moment is. This is a revolutionary moment of anti-colonial history in the making. This is it. This is that moment. This is that great fight between the forces of good, righteousness, justice, the movement called freedom, called Uhuru, versus the forces of slavery and destruction and murder, the US government. This is that fight. This is that moment. And as Chairman Omali has made loud and clear, the party and we are not going into the courts to sheepishly defend ourselves against some bogus charges, but instead to put them on trial in the courts, in the streets, put them on trial. How do they justify what they are attempting to do to the Uhuru movement against everything they've done to African people historically? What they did to Marcus Garvey, Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Aretha Franklin, they're the ones with the criminal record. The chairman's record is of fighting for the people without interruption for 60 years. So the chairman and the party is not backing down. We are not afraid. We are ready to fight. We are ready to win, and we need you on board. And this is going to go down in history. It's the US government versus humanity, versus the peoples of the world. So how can anyone pass up the opportunity to be involved in a landmark, precedent-setting, historical battle where the notion that the US can get away with putting African people in prison for saying something that the government doesn't like, for working for reparations, for doing what the chairman has done and looking out at the world and seeing his people starving and suffering and facing drone strikes and police murder and occupation and saying, no, we refuse to allow this reality to be handed down to the next generation, for refusing to stand by idly while the world goes deeper into crisis and violence so that a small minority can get richer and richer. What this case says to the world is that the idea that the US government can put African people in prison for standing up for what is righteous and good will be repudiated. It will not be done in secret. It will be done under the spotlight of history with proverbial fireworks. The whole world needs to know about this. The whole world needs to be talking about this. And that's where every single person in this meeting comes in. So if you log on to Twitter or social media and you don't see people talking about this, you need to get them talking about this. If you go to the supermarket and you're in line and you don't hear people talking about this, time to get them talking about this. If your local news station is not talking about this, call them up and get them to start talking about this. If your local congressman or politician has not denounced this, call them up and get them to denounce it. We have to do everything and anything we can to bring this out into the world and get people involved. And the federal government, they have all the resources because they sit on top of the stolen riches of the peoples of the world. So we need everyone to donate. And I know many people already have. And I say to white people, this is what reparations looks like. This is what solidarity looks like. At this moment, donate, donate, donate like you've never done before. Ultimately, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars will be needed. And there cannot be a limit on the legal resources that the Uhuru movement and the party has access to. Anyone in the white community who has access to those resources because of this colonial mode of production has to make that commitment. That lack of access to resources cannot be a factor in the party being able to wage the most effective fight back possible. So we have to donate. We have to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate and put in everything we can and not pass by this opportunity to stand up shoulder to shoulder under the leadership of the African working class for the good of the world, the Uhuru movement, the movement for the freedom of humanity. So I just want to say that this world, this case, this trial, this campaign, the world will never look the same when it is all said and done. When the chairman wins, when the party wins, when the people win, Fred Hampton wins, Martin Luther King wins, Marcus Garvey wins, Paul Robeson wins, the Mexican people win, the indigenous people win, humanity wins. The US government never was put on trial for what they did to Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Malcolm, and Marcus Garvey. Now they will be. Nobody can sit on the sidelines. So I call on you to join the fundraising committee, hold a fundraiser, contact donors. We need hundreds of thousands of dollars and more in support. We need lawyers to continue joining in this case. We need everything that everyone can do to make this happen. We need you. We will win. Unity through reparations. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa.
Hands off Africa. Uhuru. That's African internationalism, and that's how we win. So I want to salute everybody for this, all you comrades for your profound statements and profound leadership in this struggle, led by by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and this brilliant party that we have to be able to forward and see a world that we all truly want to see and live in. So I want to just address that we have a few questions and we're going to go into our appeal and then turn it back to the chairman and wrap up for today. So I just want to take a quick moment to say that we will only be able to take a few questions, but we have recorded your questions. And comrades, these questions, we want to encourage you, join the committee, go to handsoffuhuru.org and volunteer and come closer to the community, learn about what is happening so that we can join this fight back together. The party wants this campaign is created for us, for the people. This is our way to join and have an active role in this fight back. So I want to encourage everybody to, don't be afraid, and we should be encouraged, if anything, by this vessel that we have in this campaign, which is forwarded by the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. So if anything, we should be encouraged to not only, be on this webinar, but to join and to join and to join. So some of the questions that I want to just address very briefly, and this is for anybody who has been on any of our panelists. And some of the questions I can also just briefly address, but let me see, this one was just added here. Okay, I'll have to come back. I'm not able to see what that fully means there, but this question was raised about what do we get out of this opportunity that our adversaries has presented to us, and I just wanted to just bring this up because I think this question has already been answered. We are very clear about what we are going to win from this process. We are winning. We are building. We see the African, revolution in various fronts around the world, not just by location, but breaking through and fracturing the actual, colonizers, ability to just rule as its same old way. We have the Solidarity Center. We have all these various fronts. So we are winning. We have already, continuing to build upon what the party expects of us to forward this campaign. So that's what I want to just say to that question right there, and appreciate that question. Also, there is a question here that is asking, it's saying, okay, what can the RBG MCs have in conjunction with this campaign? How do you participate? So How would you like us to package and message and raise awareness and get more support? So, this is for our cultural workers, right? The question here is to the panel, what can cultural workers do, people who are MCs do to help forward this campaign as well?
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that these are really important questions. And the fact is that the government, in some instances, with this attack on us, they did us a favor. They raised our profile in a way. We've been stuck down in these communities, working like hell, rebuilding entire communities. You can come and see that. Many people outside of the community may have been ignorant of it. But the Black Power Blueprint is a real thriving economic and social project that's rehabilitating an entire community in North St. Louis, as an example. And there are other things that we are involved in around the country and throughout the world. I mean, they killed Lumumba, they cut him up in little pieces, and they put him in acid and burned his body. They overthrew Nkrumah, and I'm convinced killed him later on. They killed Mangalisha Sobukwe in South Africa. They've done all of those things. And what they've done with this attack on us, because the party has been building in virtually every place I've just referenced and beyond. What they have done is offer a platform for us to take Lumumba and Garvey and all these other forces out to masses of African people who might not otherwise have had immediate access to us, especially since, like you, we've had to experience this banning on social media and what have you. And breaking out of that was a contradiction, something that we were trying to resolve. And so the government broke us out of it. As a consequence of this attack, more than 1 million people have heard interview that I've done on what was it, with Amy Goodman, maybe that many,
Democracy Now.
just a local TV station here in St. Louis, Channel 2. Thousands, scores of thousands of people and scores of thousands of people express solidarity with us. So they know. And what they've done also is call attention to themselves, as I say, the federal government, the kinds of vicious things that it's doing to people. That doesn't do anything to burnish its image. So that's part of what we would say. And I think that it's really important that they've given us this opportunity to resurrect, certainly to resuscitate some of the leaders and the history of our movement that they don't teach in the schools, that you won't have an opportunity otherwise, that allows some people, even very intelligent and sometimes very quote unquote progressive people, don't know a damn thing about this struggle. They don't know, they might have heard about the NAACP or Martin Luther King. They didn't know anything about the tendencies in our movement or the struggle and any of this stuff. But now they have given us this platform so people can be introduced to alternatives to what they've been offered up before. I think that what has to happen, and this includes with the RBG, how is it characterized?
RBG MCs.
MCs is the stories have to be told, and not just our story. Put the story of Paul Robeson, show the video of Paul Robeson standing before the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1950s. Put the murder of Fred Hampton. Put all of these things that precedent in terms of the kind of directed, targeted attacks on the Black Revolution. And also, I think it's really important what we've done in terms of the solidarity movement, because this government has been able to attack us for ages, and precisely because the majority of white people who are just not anti-African, who are not pro-colonialist, that have not even been aware of what's happening to African people with African people, and they've been able to attack us with impunity without having any repercussions in the white community itself. That's not the case anymore. And it's really important historically, that unlike with Fred Hampton, when they can come and murder Fred Hampton and not a whimper, not any kind of motion coming from the white community of any significance on the one hand, and then shortly thereafter, you can have Kent State and all the white people in the world rise up, and they actually thought it was going to be a white revolution. They can kill Malcolm. Where were the white people or anybody who were rising up? They can kill King. Of course, you saw Africans everywhere, like threatening to burn the whole thing down. But we were we did not have access to the overall population, and the population, the government was able to isolate us. We have solidarity movements in 140 some odd cities. That is to say, representatives of our movement in the white community in 140 some odd cities. In 30 some odd states in this country, there are white people who are working for Black power in the white community. This is an incredibly significant development. And just in terms of being able to contain us, this is a strategic move of extraordinary significance. And this is how we're moving. They don't need Russians. There's no Russians to tell us to do this, or in fact, even white people were saying you can't do that in terms of organizing white solidarity in that fashion. So the other thing is that they made Jesse Neville and Penny Hess right now two unindicted co-conspirators. But the problem they have is not that they're working for Russians, but they're working for Black people. And that's totally unacceptable for them to do that. And there's words they used to call white people like that when I was younger, who sided with Black people, et cetera. You know, really derogatory words. They can't say those words anymore, just like they can't say that they are keeping us from being free anymore. They use other kinds of language now. And so it's the Russians. And then Africans are too stupid. And one reason that this is important, when you look at the fact that we are talking about a mode of production, and we're talking about a process that even creates how people view the world and culture and things like that. And so it has created a perception in the world of the stupidity of African people, that we have to be led by and held by the hand by white people. This is part of the civilizing mission that the colonizer is in. But you saw what you heard just now about Oxford. Didn't need the Russians. And you see where we've been everywhere around the world, and the fact that there is a solidarity movement itself under my leadership just liquidates all this nonsense about we so stupid that Russians have to show us the way forward. And I'm calling on everybody here also to Google the struggle that Macron, the president of France, is having in Africa, that they control so much of Africa being pushed out, and how around the same time they're attacking us for being led by the Russians, the Macron and the French are saying it's the Russians who are telling Black people that they have to rise up against French domination on the continent of Africa. So you must understand this. And so what has to happen is we have to tell the story. This is a story they don't want told. They don't want told the story of the oppression, the conditions of African people in this country, and the ongoing vicious assault on African people, including the assault on the right to vote, where right now throughout the United States, there are legislatures, state legislatures restricting the right of Black people to vote, where they are using various kinds of judicial and other means to restrict the freedom of Black people. Tell a story. Tell the story. That's what you have to do. Support this campaign. Help to raise money. Tell about how this attack on the Uhuru movement is actually an attack on Africa and the struggle of African people and colonized people around the world. We are the point, just like the Black Panther Party was that point in the 1960s. We are that point right now. So that's part of what I would have you say. And I see somebody put in the chat an article on Macron and Africa. So That's part of what I would say to the two questions that were raised. Uhuru.
Thank you. Thank you.
Join
Chairman.
this committee. That's the other thing. RBG, join this committee and participate in these meetings, and that will help to inform you what to be taken out in the world. Uhuru.
Yes. Yes, right on, Chairman Uhuru. And that question came from Comrade Asa Ampu, who is an RBG MC in occupied Azania. And I want to appreciate that question. And unfortunately, that is the last question that we will take, but I do want to wrap it up with a comment that was made in the chat by Comrade Jalali, who is also a very profound comrade who, if we're talking about culture, he's the one as well. And he states, and he's talking about this question of Akon, who is an MC, who is a rapper, and who had said that Africans in the continent don't care about slavery, and that Africans in the US need to move on. And so he's referring to this quote that Akon said, and it says here, I think that the art of just letting go or letting the past go and moving, I think it's the art of just letting the past go and moving towards the future. He says, and I think in the US, they have this stigma of not just letting go of the past and blaming the past on every mishap or, disappointment. I think that as long as you hold on to that past, there is a lot of weight that you carry with it everywhere you go. And it's hard to move forward and move fast when you got this weight on your back. You just got to let it go. And we say, hell no, we won't go. We say, hell no, you got to tell the story. And just like the chairman said, Africans who are on the continent, who are, anywhere, but just really want to appreciate that question from Comrade Asa, who is telling the story. And, he's done amazing work using his skills as an artist and a revolutionary to forward this and to tell the story. So I want to appreciate that call to action, Chairman, and to say that, as we say, the African petty bourgeois. Oh, go ahead.
Jalali, saying strange things to put in the discussion. I would remind Jalali that Comrade Black Stalin just died. And he was a extraordinary Caribbean artist. He named himself Black Stalin for a reason. And one of the most significant pieces he's done as compared to Akon is More Come. And More Come, he says that no matter how many of us they kill, no matter how many Africans they kill, more come. Say they kill Zulu, more come. They kill Ashanti, more come. They kill Lumumba, more come. The fact is that we will be relentless in this struggle, and I think people should Google Black Stalin and see some of that. That's the example that I would give if I were going to introduce some artists into this discussion. It would be something like Black Stalin. So thank you, Uhuru.
Welcome, Uhuru, Chairman. Thank you for that. All right on, comrades. I want to just really appreciate that our panelists. I want to appreciate our revolutionary leaders here on the screen, and we're going to move onto our next section. And in this part, I'm going to bring on Comrade Lisa Davis, who is going to lead me through the appeal as we move towards closing out this very profound meeting. And again, we want to remind everybody that we are happy you're here and we want to continue to fight with you. So I want to appreciate Sister Lisa Davis. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So again, today, we're talking about stopping state attacks. And next slide, it is clear that what we have said is that we are not retreating, we are building, and you can see that, but here is how we build. We're going to talk about that today. And you've already seen the principles of unity. You can go to the Hands Off website. You can go to handsoffuhuru.org/petition, and you can read the principles of unity, and you can sign the petition and unite with the 7 basic principles of unity. So next slide. And again, before we move on, I cannot continue to stop thanking our generous donors, especially just those who have continued to, even our monthly sustainers, those who give little in their mind and those who give great amounts. Every little bit counts in this fight. So next slide. You just heard from our unindicted 4 co-conspirators who, as we say, are leading this revolutionary struggle, and because of colonial law are seen as the work that we were doing as illegal, but slavery was legal under colonialism. And so we want to continue to say that this fight back, as we do in the courtroom, is going to cost us, comrades. Next slide. And we have an overall goal, which we have put out in the very beginning of this campaign, that we wanted to raise, and we want to raise $500,000. And now it's going to probably be even more than that when we look at how much we might be facing with these indictments. But we want to encourage you to continue to go to handsoffuhuru.org. Please don't stop there. Continue to support the campaign and tag your friends and bring other people into the process. Next slide. Other ways that you can continue to donate is to also use your creativity and your skills. Hold a fundraiser. Here's some pictures of some individuals and some comrades who are selling their designs, willing to donate those as part of a fundraiser, or who are having yard sales and things like that to be able to raise resources. So next slide. So Lisa and I, we're going to just pause real quick. And I can't see you, comrade, but I hear you.
Can you?
Okay.
Are you saying you can't see me?
I see you now. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, right on. So we want to just pause right here really quick, because we are short on time, but we do want to encourage everybody right now to tag somebody to come into this webinar. Let them get on the call. They can get the recording later. Bring them onto this call. Uhuru, right now, type in tinyurl.com/HOUD December 29. You see it right there on the screen. Our chat moderators will put that in the screen. Bring people onto this call. Uhuru.
And also make sure you go to handsoffuhuru.org. Make sure that you sign up to be on the mailing list and all of that. We want to make sure that, no one misses any of the announcements or anything like that.
Yes, Uhuru, comrade. Thank you. Next slide.
Yes, please make sure that you follow us on social media, and that you not only just follow us on social media, but that you also look at the people who are making the comments and tag them and follow those who are also making comments on social media. It's very, very important that we build up our forces in all areas, and social media is one of them. And we know that they're shadow banning us. We just got to really work against that and kick ass and let them know you're not stopping anything. So I would also say Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, make sure that you follow all of the organizations associated with the Uhuru movement, the Black is Back Coalition, the African People's Socialist Party, and so many others. And when you do follow, comment, make sure that you comment, and also make sure that you are paying attention to those who are making comments as well, and connect with them also.
Uhuru, yes. And if right now you have already liked one of our social media platforms, or you have not, go right now, use, stop your phone, go on your phone, go on your computer and follow us at Hands Off Uhuru, and let us know in the chat that you follow us on Facebook, you follow us on Twitter, wherever you're following us on, let us know right now in the chat, Uhuru. Next slide. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I want to again encourage everybody. Last time we had a great response with individuals joining and the people joining the emergency response. So go to handsoffuhuru.org. You'll find right on the front page or on the home page where you can sign up for our emergency response, or press the emergency response tab. We want you to be alerted if the FBI or the US government makes any further attacks on the Uhuru movement or any of its leaders. So go there right now. Hundreds of people have signed this response form. We want to make that clear. And many, over 50 organizations just already have united with mobilizing their bases in response to this attack. And it's growing. So we want to make sure that we continue to build wherever we are, and we build this strong, very strong response in case of any indictments or attacks. So again, we said to go to the petition, and I'm going to actually turn it over to Comrade Lisa Davis, who's going to, lead us into, a big action that we want to be able to, put forth. So go ahead, Comrade Uhuru.
Uhuru. Also, you see right here, sign the petition at handsoffuhuru.org, but there's also a pledge that they can sign as well. Somebody was asking, they're not the same. So please make sure that you sign both of them. so at handsoffuhuru.org. Also, Sister Mwezi, could you just continue with the slide? Because I don't have access to do that, but if you can just continue from where you are. Oh yes.
There you go.
As we know, this is a very, very critical time of year, and the government, which was so brutal toward our heroes, every one of them, likes to hijack what they represent. And we know we have MLK Day, which is coming up. And this presents an opportunity. This is really about doing what we've already been doing. So it's not like creating anything new, but we have the chance to really hone in and focus on this and to expose the hypocrisy of the US government and the Democratic Party. We got to call this out by name, and the Congressional Black Caucus, and all of those who have basically betrayed our struggles. And on January 15th, or I think the 16th is the actual day, but we know this weekend is coming up. We should basically use the whole month of January to really get very specific about some of the things that were going on and to really focus on this. But one of the things we are asking people to do is to have actions wherever they are, to have protests on that day, whether it's January 15th or the 16th. I will say right now, I am in the Newark area, and I know that the People's Organization for Progress is planning on having something on January 15th, which is the actual Martin Luther King's actual birthday. And I will support that as well. But we are going to also have something on January 16th, specifically talking about Hands Off Uhuru movement, specifically calling out the FBI, the United States government, and all of this. And basically what I did was I just put down some basically points that I think that we should be talking about somewhat. This is Comrade Mwezi just asked me to just put down some ideas, so that's what I was doing last night. So some of this may need to be refined or whatever, but I think that these are issues that need to be raised. One of the things in the previous slide, you saw something about the basketball court. If we could just go back to the previous slide real quickly a moment.
Our Zoom is on it.
Are you able to write?
There you go.
I know the chairman has been talking quite a bit about the goals of the COINTEL program. One of them, point number 5, a final goal they put down is to prevent the long-range growth of militant Black organizations, especially among youth, specific to tactics to prevent these groups from converting young people who must be developed. And so you see right here that they didn't just build a basketball court. It's not like they're trying to produce more Michael Jordans or whatever. They're built, look at the logo of this court. They call themselves the Black Power Vanguards. And from what I understand, they're talking about having basketball leagues, but leagues or teams around revolution and these revolutionary ideas. And we need to be bringing that home. We need to be talking about that. They built a basketball court to organize youth, and this is when they come at them with these indictments. That's one way we need to be approaching. And then also what is going on with the health centers that they're building up and how they come after them for that, because basically that's what happened. So if you just want to go now to the next slide again, and again, you will see just some of the, these are just some of the points that I was thinking that we should be highlighting during these demonstrations and all throughout the month of January and beyond. But we have the King holiday presents an opportunity for us to really hone in on all of these points continuously, hit them with it. Like we need to highlight the pledge, definitely. We should be planning activities all throughout the month of January around COINTELPRO and the targeting of the Black liberation struggle, and really bringing home that the United States government has never sided with Black people on anything. We can make this tie-in to Africa as well. And I know that Nelson Mandela is a relatively controversial figure. We might not all, we might have differences on who he actually was and where he stood in terms of the liberation struggle, but he is perceived as being somebody, this great figure all throughout the world. And yet he was on the US terrorist list until 2008. We need to hone in on and educate the masses on the details of the hypocrisy of the FBI and again, how this is happening under the Democratic Party. We know that the Republicans ain't anything. It's really one party. It's a whole system, but there's such a huge contradiction with the support that so many of the Black electorate continues to show to the Democratic Party and even among the so-called left. And we just have to really hone in on these kind of things. I think we also need to discuss and compare what was going on with these mass shooters who had a violent online footprint. If you look up some of these mass shooters, almost all of them, they have a violent online footprint. They have been able to use the internet to talk about what they want to do, to publish all of their manifestos and everything. Many of them are connected to the Azov ideology. Ukraine was known for being one of the big recruiting areas for the rise in the neo-Nazi movement and, white nationalism. And many shooters were sympathizing and expressing their ideologies. And yet the United States government, we had two vicious mass shootings right before they raided and invaded the chairman and the Uhuru movement. And so these people were able to organize, put all of this stuff online, and the FBI did nothing. Who were they focused on at that time? They were focused on the Black liberation struggle. And I think we need to hone in on that as well. Also discuss the financial impact that the attacks are having on the various programs that the African People's Socialist Party is building up. Like, again, I know they're building up, a health center, I believe, in St. Louis, and many other things that they're doing. And also bringing the shadow wars in Africa and the continuous attacks on Africa by the United States government. So these are some of the things I think that we should be planning for and working on. And definitely on January 15th or the 16th, whenever we can do it, that weekend, we should all have mobilizations in our area. And also, I'm sorry, Sister Mwezi, you asked me to, there's going to be,
yes. You're talking about the slide that's up right now, right, comrade?
Right, the link where they could put what they plan to do on that day, yes.
Sure, yes, and I can take it on from here because we just made some edits to the slide, and I just want to pause and just appreciate you, comrade Lisa Davis, for telling us we need to, that this is what I want to see, and for calling and for leading a Hands Off Uhuru, planning a Hands Off Uhuru protest on MLK Day, and explaining the significance of why it's important that we say hands off MLK, hands off African people, because the FBI COINTELPRO has been doing their thing for far too long. So I want to appreciate you, comrade. And and I want everybody to join Lisa's call. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/MLK Day submit and submit your event. If you're going to do an event in your city, in your area, submit where your event's going to be. Tell us who to contact, which platforms that you're going to use. We want to be able to wage a fierce, let everybody know that Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign is growing. We are everywhere. And that and I just want to really salute you, Lisa, for bringing and making this call. So our chat moderators will put that in the chat, handsoffuhuru.org/MLK Day submit. And I know I heard the call that we have time, so we're going to go quickly over the next few slides because we don't want anybody to leave here without knowing how you can get involved. We need volunteers. We want you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/volunteer right now and, look at some of the positions that are needed. These are not on that form, but you can indicate which one you want on that form. And, we need project managers, a project manager for the overall steering committee. We need social media people. We need graphic designers, videographers, cultural workers, help do a benefit concert, any type of event coordinators, birthday fundraising coordinators, that you see on Facebook, fundraising coordinators, and our legal defense support committee, is going to be filing requests and doing, research and things like that. So there are so many ways that you can get involved in this campaign. And so, take a screenshot of this page if you need, come back to it. But even if you can't right now, go to handsoffuhuru.org/volunteer and fill out the form and let us know in the chat that you have completed the form and that we will hope to hear from you soon. Uhuru. Next slide. So again, we will talk more about this at our next mass meeting, but we do want to just announce that we are continuing to advance our struggle for sanctuary cities or cities of refuge, to take to city councils for adoption, so that police departments and city governments refuse to cooperate with the FBI or any federal agency to attack the Black community and attack its members, who are organizing and, making changes for the betterment of and upliftment of their community. So we want to really just to tell everybody that this is happening. St. Petersburg, Florida, and St. Louis, we are bringing this to city councils, and your city can also be a part of this. Let us know, we can reach out to you and we can provide you with a generic, a generic resolution to help forward this in your own city. Uhuru comrades. Next slide. And again, we want to remind you that when you support the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa defense campaign, you are supporting the Uhuru movement, you are supporting the freedom movement, which is freedom for African people. And I don't know if you want to say anything last here, Comrade Lisa Davis, as we go into the announcements, but I just want to appreciate you for coming on, comrade.
Oh, thank you so much. It just reminded me as you were talking about the approaching the politicians about this, and of course I do agree, approach the city council and everything, but we need to also just keep in the forefront about the betrayal of the CBC and the Congress with their Countering Malign Russian Activities in Africa Act, in which they basically called upon the United States government to monitor the activities of all Black people throughout the world. And I'm not embellishing that. That's primarily what that resolution says, that Gregory Meeks of New York City sponsored, and everybody, the squad, the Congressional Black Caucus, everybody within the House endorsed it just about. For some reason, the Senate hasn't passed it, not yet at least.
Yeah, so, we bring that all into this fight back, is what we say.
Yes.
This is all related, and I want to appreciate you because, whatever we see out there, we can sum it up as this is colonialism, and this is the campaign that is building the fight back to end this system of oppression and to stop the attacks on the leaders of the African People's Socialist Party and the African liberation struggle overall, as Comrade Lisa has stated. So thank you, Comrade, for that. And I want to just move into the announcements now, because we do want to let people know that that the chairman will be touring. You will see the chairman in a city near you if you book now, because the calendar is already filling up, and we want you to be able to bring the chairman to your community, to your campus, wherever you are. Next slide. And you can contact the campaign. You can take a picture of this, or you can contact us always at the website, handsoffuhuru.org. You can call us at 813-906-9274. And you can always email us at info@handsoffuhuru.org. And next slide, we want to let you know that we have some Uhuru swag, some Hands Off Uhuru swag. So you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/shop. This is another way that you can support the campaign, and that you can help bring resources and generate ways for us to be able to wage this fight back. Go to the website, and when you do your protest on January 15th, order now so you could have your shirt and you could be out there saying Hands Off Uhuru in style.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going right now.
Yep. All right, right on, comrade. And before you go buy that shirt, or while you're doing it, I want to, Lisa Davis, you are a member of the Black is Back Coalition, the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition, and there is a very important year in review that we wanted to announce that is taking place on January 7th at 12 p.m. Central. So people can register. If anybody can see on the screen, it says tinyurl.com/BIB year end. And there you will learn from the Black is Back Coalition, of which we have members on this call today. I want to shout out also Comrade Ralph Pointer, who is also on this call as well. So, Uhuru. So that, everybody, concludes our announcements. And I want to just turn it back over to our panel, which will be the chairman, if you want to provide any closing remarks as we close up today's webinar. I want to thank everybody for coming on And let's take this fight back where it needs to go, which is towards victory. And we say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Uhuru, Chairman.
Well, thank you, Comrade Mwezi, and again, thank all of you who have participated, the panelists and attendees of this extraordinarily important meeting. I just want to say that hopefully one of the things that's come through quite clearly is that we do not intend simply to lay down and be trampled on as a movement, that the struggle for Africa is critical and that we have to wage this struggle on various different fronts. We have to achieve an ability to say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, or the sky's the limit. I think that part of what has to happen that you just mentioned is that we're going to various city governments and sometimes even state assemblies and things like that. We've got commitments right now from Comrade Charles Barron on the City Council in New York, from Comrade Jesse Todd, who's on the board of alderpersons in St. Louis. And we're looking at St. Petersburg now for people who will go to get before these local governments and present them with a resolution that would prohibit them allowing the police departments to work with these federal agencies and attacking Black people engaged in the struggle for freedom. In the same way that people who were very interested in this question of immigrants created these sanctuary cities and got governments to sign on to them. We want to have a movement where even if people are inclined to act like Sister Lisa just referenced in terms of the Congressional Black Caucus and not do it, they need to be in a position of having to say they're not going to do it. We need to have this before the people, and I think taking it before these governments will help to clarify a lot. Some instances like St. Louis, where you have a majority African population, some instances in like New York, where you have a huge African and Mexican, Puerto Rican, non-colonizer population, I think it can have really important implications. I think that people who are on here, or who have the ability to do so, should find a way also to get this resolution. There's a generic resolution that's being prepared right now that you can take and try to get before your city council and put them in a situation of having to take a stance around this question of using the police to facilitate the attack. It's the Dred Scott. We take him at Dred Scott right here in St. Louis, where he thought that he was going to be in Missouri and free from being able to go back into slavery. And the feds actually said that he should be re-enslaved. And that's something that we are working with. So I'm hoping that people can deal with it. And I hope also you can hear the question, the very serious question about we need a lot of money. And we need a lot of lawyers, and we need law students, and we need people who can do research, legal research. We want to fight them. And so we're asking you to participate in arming this struggle for resistance with your bodies, with your volunteers, with your dollars and things like that. I want to thank you again for being here with us. And I want to repeat, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Thank you, Comrade Mwezi.
Uhuru, Chairman. Uhuru, comrades. Let's win this, Uhuru.
Uhuru.